This is Amy Mishler with the U.S. Justicewatch. We're having our first ever interview with Darlene Price. She's a candidate for U.S. Senate. We also have with us Paula Brown. She's also a whistleblower, like Ms. Price is. Before we talk about Senate race, let's talk about this book, Bordergate.
Well, this book is about my whistleblower story.
Your book?
Yep. Basically, after I served my country on active duty with the U.S. Army Military Police Corps for several years, then I became a special agent on the front lines of the war on drugs. And I ran counter-smuggling operations up against some of the most dangerous, cutthroat Mexican and Colombian cartels known to mankind on the southwest border. And as a result of that, after about 11 years with this agency and being, very successful, my whole task force was very successful, we seized 8,000 pounds of marijuana and 34 kilos of uncut cocaine in a railroad tanker car, the big metal railroad tanker
and the railroads.
Right. And we weren't just out there guessing. We had 5 more of these cars headed on the way. So we knew what was in them. We had a confidential, reliable format telling us what was in them. And when they arrived in Colton, California, we weighed them in, and they weighed in at 25 to 40 tons. This would have been the largest seizure on record for any agency. And
so you're saying this is 40 tons of cocaine?
Right. Well, we didn't know the degree of how much cocaine, because this organization that was running these loads, they were poly-loaded. In other words, they had marijuana, cocaine, sometimes heroin. So we weren't sure what the degree of cocaine versus marijuana was in these loads that were coming up. But the one that we just got was 8,000 pounds of marijuana and 34 kilos of uncut cocaine, which once it's cut turns into a lot more kilos. So these next 5 tanker cars, we were pretty sure that they were mostly cocaine, marijuana, but we were told also that they had a lot of pure tar heroin in this too. So needless to say, this was millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of narcotics, and it would have been the largest seizure ever, at 25 to 40 tons.
It would have been?
It would have been, because my corrupt managers way up in my agency let this in. What happened was, in the course of, when it came into the rail yard, it takes a long time to look at these. We have to follow rules, OSHA rules and everything else. Once the loads get up here, these tanker cars, you have to treat them just like they're hazardous materials vessels. So first you have to take them to one location and then weigh them. Then you have to move them to another location out of the eye of the public, because also these crooks watch these cars too. And we did not want to let them know that we were going to look into these cars, because we wanted to do what's called a controlled delivery and actually deliver these cars
and find out who's going to be distributing.
Right. So that was our game plan. Well, before these cars, after they were weighed, before we could move them to the kind of more hidden location to actually make entry into them and do what we needed to do, our bosses basically ordered us out of the rail yard, ordered me off the case, and in the couple of days battle where these cars were supposed to be being moved to the secondary location, someone went into the customs computer, the tax treasury enforcement computer system, and overrode my hold on the tax system, which triggered an override in the Union Pacific Railroad, which we had UPS, Union Pacific Railroad special agents on our task force, and we had other different railroad people on our task force, and it triggered a release, and these cars were let in.
So our government let
25 to 40 tons.
Our government let 20 to 45.
Well, our government didn't. Bad people within our government did this.
Okay.
And when we blew the whistle on this, because you're required to do that, I mean, we would have done it anyway because it was the right thing to do, but also people need to understand, whistleblowers oftentimes are placed in a situation where you're between a rock and a hard place. If it's a crime and you're a federal agent, you are required by law to report this felony. If you don't, it's called misprism of felony.
But that doesn't apply just to employees of the federal government. That's anybody that knows of a federal felony. They have to report it.
If you don't report that, and in Paula's case, she's in the same bind. She didn't know that at the time. She's just a good employee, and she did the right thing. And we'll talk about her here in a minute.
You get in the middle of the lake and realize I don't have my floaties on here, and I'm sinking.
That's it. So we blew the whistle on this. I had a whole task force that was backing me up, and keep in mind, this was a large task force. We had a federal prosecutor assigned to this full-time, and she also ended up being a whistleblower on this as well. When we blew the whistle on this, they came after us big time to try to cover this up. We endured the worst threats, retaliation, humiliation. You can't even believe what the whistleblowers in this case went through, trying to shut us up and get rid of us. Just one example of this is I had been with the agency for about 11 years. And prior to that, with the military police corps and everything, all total, just about 20 years in government service, nothing but, and prior to that, keep in mind, 4 years in ROTC at the college level.
But you're just a Kentucky girl, aren't you?
Yes, I started.
Okay, I'm a Kentucky girl.
I'm a Kentucky girl.
Kentucky girls, man, Kentucky women. But yeah, I have been with the agency for all these years, all this federal government experience, secret clearances, the whole 9 yards. Nothing in my resume but awards, commendations, promotions. Right. And the minute I blew the whistle, they came after us. And one of the ways they did this is they have what's called internal affairs. And in Department of Homeland Security, internal affairs is really the goon squad. That's what they use to come after you. I was called in within a 6-month time period. I was called in by internal affairs, placed under internal affairs investigations 3 times within a 6-month period, read my rights.
Now, how many times were you called in by the internal affairs before that?
Oh, never. I was never placed under investigation by anyone for anything.
Only after you...
Oh, yeah, only after we blew the whistle on this. I had never been under investigation, nothing in my file but awards, commendations, promotions. Awards, commendation, promotion. Also, my colleagues on this task force, no internal affairs investigations on any of us, none of us. Ruben Sandoval, my co-case agent on this case, not only had he been with Customs for many years, but he had been with Secret Service for 7 years too. And myself and Sandra Nunn, who they're all in this book here, we were also cross-designated Secret Service agents, which they usually go and pick the cream of the crop to go and guard people like the Israeli Prime Minister, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Bob Dole.
So you weren't like low level. This was a top.
Well, when we blew the whistle on this, we ended up taking this to federal trial. I'm proud to say we did not back down and kowtow to all this retaliation. We took